I know you're all looking forward to it, so let's start off with the joke for today. What kind of tea did American colonists like? And if you guessed liberty, you're correct. Challenges and changes in the movement, specifically the civil rights movement. Let's go through the concepts. Compare the beliefs of Marcus Garvey, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X, at least Malcolm X, while he represented the Nation of Islam. And then why might it have been inevitable for African Americans to take a more aggressive stance against racism and inequality during the civil rights movement? Key vocab, Malcolm X is one of them, Black Panthers is another. Both of those have to deal with the transition of the civil rights movement from nonviolence to that aggressive militant nature that we'll see upcoming. We last left off talking about the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King, how it's a nonviolent movement, uses nonviolent tactics like sit-ins and freedom rides. And as we move into the 1960s, we have one of the more well-known moments of the civil rights movement, and that is the March on Washington. You may not have heard of the March on Washington, but you certainly have heard of, or at least heard part of the speech that was given during the March on Washington, and that is Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. A couple of notes on the March on Washington. This was 250,000 people that went to D.C. for equality. Okay, that was the purpose of them being there, demanding change, so on and so forth. 75,000 of which were white. So there was a very heavy African American population there, and part of that was, of course, Martin Luther King. There is no doubt that the I Have a Dream speech was quintessential of what the movement was trying to accomplish. The fact that different races could come together and it would be really the norm and it would be okay. However, the movement itself, the civil rights movement itself, was coming under fire at this time and would continue to come under fire from other members of specifically the African American community who felt like this nonviolent approach was not working. The fact of the matter is, the nonviolent protesters, they encountered lots of violence. They endured lots of violence, like we saw in Greensboro with the freedom rides, and there are other examples of that as well. This led many to believe that the nonviolent approach promoted by Martin Luther King was not working, and changes needed to be made in that part of the movement. One leader of the more aggressive civil rights movement that comes to pass is Malcolm X, pictured in the bottom right-hand corner there. And he has a different take on the civil rights movement compared to Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King Jr. believes in peace and cooperation, which is really, it's attractive to whites as well as many African Americans. However, Malcolm X's belief in self-defense and separation does not attract a white audience and is just going to attract really an African American audience. A little bit about Malcolm X. His father was killed by the KKK. He's going to be a prominent member and an outspoken leader of the Nation of Islam, a black Muslim group in the United States at the time. And he's going to speak on behalf of Elijah Muhammad quite often. You can hear that in a lot of interviews that he has. For the most part, Malcolm X, like many, and this is why he's an attractive leader, like many, he is tired of the injustices of that African Americans are receiving in society. No different from Martin Luther King at this point. However, his take on it is different. Self-defense. if you are being attacked, okay, and this includes it being attacked by police, then you should be able to defend yourself without having to be worried about facing harsher consequences than the person who's actually doing the attacking. And this is his problem with the nonviolent protesting, is that it's not accomplishing, in his eyes, it's not accomplishing very much. So defend yourself, okay? Be willing to defend yourself. Where his movement, or the more aggressive movement that he's going to be a part of, where it loses the white audience, is more so in the separation. The difference between separation and segregation is forced upon African Americans. Plessy v. Ferguson made that happen. Okay, separation would be the choice of separating yourselves from another group, whether it be based on race, culture, religion, doesn't matter. But it's the having the option to be separated, as opposed to segregation, where the option was not available to African Americans. Separation is not a new idea. Marcus Garvey in the 1920s, he promoted separation. He wanted African Americans to go back to Africa, to be in their home land, their original land where they came from before slaves were brought over to eventually the United States. Malcolm X, in a way, is promoting the same exact thing. So Malcolm X and other leaders and followers of this more aggressive civil rights movement, they really, one of the main things that comes out of it is this idea of black power. Okay, and again, what turned people off from this? What turned off white people from this part of the civil rights movement was it seemed very. It was not only aggressive, but also very aggressive in what it stood for, and it seemed to be excluding whites, and almost as if you had to be black. And black power can have that connotation. Martin Luther King was concerned about the phrase black power. In many ways, we see here, even if it did turn off some folks, what we do see is that black power in many ways is not just a cry, and it's not an attempt to exclude people, but it is a voice where African Americans are saying we need to be proud of who we are, our culture, stand up for ourselves instead of waiting for the white citizens or the government, where most are white most elected officials are white. We're not waiting for them anymore to make changes. We're taking it upon ourselves, and we're going to be proud of that. Black is beautiful is one of the cries that comes out of the Black Power movement, with an intention of just, again, focusing on African Americans themselves, that to be black is good, and there should be a sense of pride there. There shouldn't be any sort of disappointment or wallowing in self-pity that you have had a tough, if nothing else, a tough life, historically speaking, in the United States, facing the discrimination and racism, being one of the minorities forever since the United States is concerned. The Black Power movement does lead to militant groups, though, and one of the groups that it does lead to is the Black Panthers. And that group, it is committed to fighting police brutality in the ghettos. One of the things it's not known for are the many public services that it provides in these urban areas where, the white flight occurred, many whites moved out, and you have a lot of money went with that. It creates economic challenges in the urban areas. Well, the Black Panthers seek to address this through different types of being in charge or hosting different types of services for those still in the cities. The part that it is always recognized for is the militant aspect. It really does get tired of the police brutality in the ghettos, and this is where the self-defense factor of this part of the civil rights movement comes into play. So ultimately, why is there a change in the movement, and why are there challenges? Well, it depends on the perspective. If you feel like the nonviolence isn't working and it's coming at too high a cost, then it's worth trying something else. And there are those who are proposing there are different ways to do it. For those that don't accept those ways, or they believe the nonviolent movement is working, then there's just an encouragement to stay the course. No matter the case, both movements continue to move forward, which of course suggests that there is more to be done. Both have the idea that discrimination, racism is still a prominent problem throughout the United States, not just the South and the Deep South. That's important to note. Okay, we'll see how the Vietnam War is going to affect all this starting in our next video. See ya.